Hello everyone, this is Chad Hill and I have Adam Stetzer on the phone as well.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Good afternoon.
And we're really excited to be here today to talk about our updated phone tracking. We've made a lot of enhancements over the past 4 to 6 weeks and want to share how those work and let you know how to use those on a day-to-day basis in your campaigns. So let's walk through the changes that we've made, and then I'm going to click over and do a demo of how you actually use them. The first thing that we've done is we are switching to a new phone company, and I've provided a list of the most important reasons we've done that. One of them is instant procurement of numbers, and we now can support not only toll-free and local numbers in the U.S., but also in Canada and the U.K. So we've had a number of Canadian clients who've been frustrated that our previous phone company could not provide Canadian numbers, and then now we're opening up the UK as well. So this is something that is going to be a very nice add to get with the new phone company. We get a lot more search features, so we now can search for numbers local to a certain zip code. We can search for numbers that contain certain characters, so that's a nice new feature as well. We also are going to be able to provide caller ID information. And this is something that we really wanted to have in the platform, and again, the last phone company could not provide this information, but we're getting not only the caller ID as it's provided, but we're also getting a location of where the phone call came from. So this can lead to some really interesting analytics reporting options down the road. And then certainly important to us all is that this service also had a cheaper per minute charge. So we now will be able to offer toll-free numbers at $2 a month and 5 cents a minute, and local numbers at $1 per month and 3 cents per minute. And then there is a 1 cent per call charge for caller ID. Now, when we ran the analysis of how much this would actually run most of our accounts, for typical usage, this was in the $5 to $10 range. So it was really a fairly nominal charge, but as the number of our clients using call tracking has grown, we need to essentially start billing for it. So we found the best option possible, and one that's I think if you compare it anywhere else in the market is extremely affordable. The other thing that we've done is we, as I mentioned, added a lot more features, and we'll walk through these, into the HubShout dashboard. So it used to be that you requested a phone number through your account manager, and that was then provisioned sort of through our workflow on the back end, and then ultimately the number was activated and provided to you in your dashboard. You're now going to be able to do that all yourself. So you can go right into the sales tab, go in, search for phone numbers, activate those phone numbers, and have them up and running within 10 to 15 seconds. It's a far better process than what we were working through before, where we would request a number, it would take 24 hours to activate the number, and then we had to go in and set it up again to actually get it to ring to the destination. Even more important is that as we find things that you want to change, I want to have the phone number ring a different number than the one you initially provided. This can all be done, again, right through the dashboard, skipping the step of having to call the account manager or raise a support task and then wait for us to coordinate that with the phone company in the back end. We also are adding the ability to announce a recording. So there are many states, in fact, in most cases, when you record a phone call, you need to say something like, "This call may be recorded for quality assurance purposes." So we've built that right into the configuration screen, so you'll be able to make those changes yourself. We also have the ability then to turn on or off call recording as you want. And then for many of our call tracking numbers and many of our resellers, people want to be able to announce and brand those phone calls to their customers. So we've added a whisper feature. And what that does is when someone calls the tracking number, it announces this call may be recorded for quality assurance purposes, and then initiates the phone call to the number that you've provided, so that would be to your client's business. When the client picks the phone up and says, "Hello, Acme Plumbing," they basically, at that point, will hear a short recorded message that you can type into the screen that says, "This is a call from your website. You are now going to be connected." So that gives them it allows them in sort of real time to know that, hey, today I got several calls from my website or from my pay-per-click campaign or maybe even from my email campaign. So that gives you the ability to sort of provide some feedback or some immediate connection to the source of that phone call. So that's a nice new feature.
Yeah, that last feature is really cool, Chad. I think it demos really, really well too. When you're showing people that you'll be able to announce this, it's just a slick thing.
Definitely agree. Now, once you get a phone number, you connect it, you have it provisioned to call the place to ultimately ring to your customer's business. Another thing that we wanted to do was to enhance our reporting capabilities. So as it was in the version prior to today, you basically could see a graph that showed total number of calls in a month and then a list of all the phone calls with the ability to click and listen to the phone call. We've added a number of new ways to look at that data. We've added the ability to look at your phone calls by label, which is something also new, the ability to label a phone number, and also by source. And then we've also at the same time went ahead and did that with web leads so that we had some continuity between the way you looked at web leads and phone calls. So that's something that's really neat. The other thing that we're doing is we're actually pulling this information back into the dashboard in real time. So now both your web leads and your phone calls are going to immediately show up in your dashboard. Again, prior to today, the phone calls would come in overnight and be there the next morning. So today, now they're going to be right there on the screen immediately. And then we're also adding the ability to sort and also filter your phone calls. So if you wanted to sort by medium or sort by label or filter by label or medium, you can also do that. So now I'm going to jump over and actually talk about some of these features. Show you how they work. So I'm in my account and I'm going to go to setup. I'm going to use our VetHub's demo account. And the first thing you'll notice is that in the sales tab, we've restructured, renamed some of the menu items here. So analytics stays, but we've actually added a new tab called web leads, which is a place to go get your detailed web leads, and phone calls, a place to get your detailed phone calls. And then we've moved all of the setup options into a new menu item called setup. So I've clicked on the setup option. You'll see 4 tabs within that. I've immediately jumped over to numbers, which is where we want to start, and that's where we're going to go get a new phone number. Now you can see here that I have recently added 3 new numbers at the bottom, a Google calls, a Google organic phone calls, email phone calls, and Bing calls, and also have CPC calls here as well. I'm going to go ahead and add a new phone number, and let's just say that I want to track calls from Facebook for whatever reason. Let's say I wanted to have anybody who came to my website from Facebook get a special tracking number, and I want that number to be different than all the other ones. So I'm going to go ahead and click toll-free numbers, find a number. It's pulling back all the numbers that are available right now for me to order. Okay, and I want to label this Facebook so I remember where this comes from, and I'm just going to type in to ring this. I want this to ring at my my desk here. Now medium, I'm going to actually make this referral. I don't know if we have we'll make this referral for now. Order number. Okay. Now I'm clicking on go to the phone tracking screen because I actually want to add some more parameters. So now I have the new number that I just created, 324, and if I click on the number, it will take me to the advanced setup options, and this is where you can configure things like whether or not you want to record the phone call, whether or not you want the disclaimer intro. Again, that's the all calls may be recorded for quality assurance purposes. Just a very general greeting there. We are going to be looking at adding transcription, but for now that's set to no. Here's where you can turn on the whisper feature. Again, this is when the call is connected to your client, that before the customer is on the line or the prospect is on the line, there's a message that's actually read to the customer. So this is where I might say something like, and you have a choice to pick a woman or a man, but I might say, this is a call from Facebook. You'll be connected now. And then I can update this. Okay. So again, you see the numbers that I've created. And what I'll do is just on my cell phone, I'll just call through and test this number. And I'll hold up the phone so that you can hear both ends of it.
This ought to be interesting.
Yeah, this will be very interesting. Okay, so I'm pushing call. I'm going to put it on speakerphone here. That's not a good sign. Let me try that again.
Hopefully you misdialed it.
Let me try that again. I did 1 2 1 2. Let's try that again. Sorry about that, everyone.
Thank you for calling. Your call may be recorded for quality assurance purposes.
Okay, so that's ringing through. Okay, I'm going to pick the phone up and you didn't quite hear the connection there because it was a little too quiet. But that's the basically that would have read the message that we put there. This is a call from your Facebook page. You will be connected now. And then the two would be there and the phone call would be recorded. So I could actually now click over to analytics now that we just went through that process. And I could look on my phone calls and see that right here there was actually a phone call at 4:15. Basically right here for your call to your Facebook phone number, and it picked up my caller ID and also showed that the call was completed, and then I can listen to the phone call here. So you can see that this is something that happened. Essentially, I did it real time, other than my mistake dialing the phone number, which was a user error, not anything to do with the system. But we were able to set up a phone call, label it, and run it pretty much immediately. Now, that takes us through to the setup process. We configured some of the options around ringing to a new phone number, around the whisper feature, and all that, how that works. Let's take a look at what we've done with analytics, how we can start looking at this information. Okay, actually, I'm going to click over to my other browser where I'm logged in as a different user.
And Chad, while you're doing that, you have a question that popped in on the board that I wanted to relay to you, which was when the lady answers the phone and our customer is calling, is there a way for that voice to say, you've reached our company name, this call may be recorded for quality assurance purposes, rather than the generic announcement disclaimer you demonstrated?
Currently, that's not something that is supported. That probably is something we could do. The trick there was just trying to have it announced, not use the computer recorded voice. We wanted to actually have a real recording of a human talking, instead of when you type in the text for the whisper side, it's actually a computer reading it back, and it sounds a little artificial. So we wanted to have a nice, crisp, clear human voice. It's probably something we could do at some point if people did have a file that they wanted to upload, but that's not currently supported. Okay, so what I wanted to show on this screen is that now we're actually looking at the same chart that we had before, where it shows a combination of web leads and phone calls, but we've added some summary data tables below here. I'm actually going to make my screen slightly larger. And you can see here that in addition to doing that for the phone calls, we also now are showing your month-to-date web leads where they came from. So you can see here that we went in and coded. We got 2 leads, and when we reviewed the leads, we assigned a source, and now we're looking at this saying that we had 1 web PPC lead and 1 web organic lead. And then for the phone call data, though, you can see here that we're reporting not only on the source. So if you remember, I went in and when I set up the phone number, I coded it and said this is either CPC or this is organic or this is referral traffic, whatever it might be. We could have used social. I think that was in the drop-down box. But now we're seeing our phone calls summarized by source. So we had 5 organic calls and 3 CPC calls. Now, what I did over here on the month-to-date phone calls by label is it takes it a little bit one level deeper. So we're seeing, rather than just the summary by source, we're actually seeing essentially all of the calls by number, because Google calls map to one of our numbers that we labeled Google calls. We could have left in the label the actual phone tracking number if we wanted to, but here we renamed it just Google calls. So you can see here that we've got 4 calls from Google, 3 from CPC, 1 from the Bing calls label, and 1 from Facebook. Now I can click through and look at details, because what I actually want to do is I'm looking at that saying, well, Google calls and Bing calls, maybe that's a little bit tricky to understand, because was that a organic Google call or was that a Bing call? And a couple things here. One is that you can see that in the detailed table view, we actually show you the label as well as the medium. So if I wanted to sort out and just look at my organic calls, I can type into the search box here, organic, and it's now showed me my 1 Bing call and my 4 Google calls. And if I decide at this point that that label is a little misleading, I'd like to change that a little bit, I can flip back over to the setup screen here. And I want to change my Google calls to something like maybe Google Organic. Might be slightly redundant to call it Google Organic, but just to illustrate the point here. Bing Organic. So now when I come back over to my analytics screen, you'll see that it's a little bit clearer now. So we see Google Organic, Bing Organic, CPC calls. So that the ability to drill through and see a more detailed view is something new that we've added. And again, this gives you the ability to sort of slice and dice the table whichever way you want. Again, using either looking for a date or looking for a person who called. Like maybe I want to know how many times Chad Hill called. There's all the calls that Chad Hill had. So there's some different utility depending on what you're looking to do. Now we also did the same thing with web leads. You can now click over and look at your web leads, and you have the ability to sort by lead, by area code, by number, whatever you want to be able to sort by, and you have the ability to filter and look at that information this way. So just to kind of go back and talk about this, what we think this enables is the reason we did phone tracking is because this really helps prove out the return on investment of various marketing programs that you're running. So when you have your monthly meeting with your clients, or when your client, we have some clients who are logging in using this daily now, when they're looking at this information, they can now start to see where exactly their phone calls are going. And we have some clients on the CPC side, on the paid search side, who actually may, rather than just having one phone number for paid search, maybe they will actually want to get a better, more granular view of where phone calls are coming from within the campaign. So they set up a phone number for every ad group. And at the price point that we're talking about here, where a local number is $1 and a long distance number is $2, it really actually may make a lot of sense to be able to sort of to sort of break your campaign into more granular parts, so that you can look at this and say, well, I spent $1,000 last month on this particular set of keywords in this ad group, and here are the web leads I know I got because I'm able to get tracking all the way down to the keyword level. but I would like to also be able to have some idea of the 100 phone calls, how many of those 100 phone calls came from this ad group versus a different ad group. So with this, you can actually very easily do that and be able to get a more unified look at what kind of lead and lead generation you're doing off of a specific part of your campaign. So Adam, are there any questions that we have on the line there?
And Chad, yeah, well, I have one for you. What do you say to people who say, well, when the phone rings, we always ask them, where did you hear about us? And so we have a pretty good feel of that anyway, so we don't have to go to all this extent and do all these things you're showing.
Well, I think there's two things there. One is that what I usually say is that's really great, but the likelihood of that information ever getting back to us, who are essentially been charged on a daily basis to try to optimize a campaign or to help your website from an organic or a paid search standpoint, the likelihood of that filtering back is very difficult. And then also it requires an extra step for us to break that out and try to match that back to the source of the activity. So just from a, hey, I can help you if you're willing to spend a very nominal amount of money to better track this. So I think that's one thing. And then I think the second thing is that it's, in most cases, businesses say they're good at it, but they're usually not as good as they say they are. And so, that may not always be true. That one depends on the client and the customer. But we typically say, try it out for 30 days, 45 days. These numbers, you can keep them. They're relatively inexpensive, and give it a shot and see how it works, because it really is helpful for us measuring the campaign.
Yeah, I think that's a good response. And I think even if your marketing team is really super great and does always ask that question and tallies it up and is hyper organized with Excel spreadsheets, the people calling don't always give you a straight answer or remember. So I think that you may have inaccurate data there too. The other point I was going to make, Chad, is just with the competitiveness of PPC, missing just a few phone calls. It's just a few phone calls falling out of your return on investment calculation for paid search. Is that enough to tip your opinion from doing paid search doesn't work to it does, if you'd actually accurately tracked all these? And what's your take on that, Chad?
Yeah, no, I think definitely on the paid search side, especially for service-based businesses, if you're not tracking the phone calls and getting those into the number when you're essentially dividing the spend by the leads, and you're almost always going to pretty quickly, if you're not including phone calls, you're pretty quickly going to come to the conclusion that it doesn't work, that the cost per lead's too high. But usually when you add the phone numbers in, because again, remember, a lot of these businesses, and I'm talking about the service type businesses, so contractors, plumbers, electricians, a lot of those types of businesses, people find their website, but they want to pick up the phone and call. And so if you look at the ratio of, they may have a great lead form on their website that says, for more information, fill out our lead form. But if you actually look at the ratio of lead forms to phone calls, again, on the service businesses, our experience is that it's always 2 or 3 phone calls and maybe higher for every one web lead form. So if you're essentially missing 60 to 70% of the response especially when you're doing pay-per-click, you're going to really be doing, the retention is going to be hard when you get in those account meetings and people say, I don't see the return. And if you don't have something to sit there and show them, well, here are the phone calls and this is the return, it's difficult. And I think one of the things that's really nice with this new feature we've added, where we have caller ID, it's really great, because I think what's going to happen here is when you sit down with the screen, especially for the smaller businesses who really are more hands-on with their leads and their sales, they're going to look at this list and say, oh, wow, yeah, I didn't know that Chad Hill actually came from a cost per click ad. I thought he was referred from our friend, a prior customer, whatever it might be. And it may be that it was, to Adam's point, it may have been that was part of the referral process, but maybe it was, I'm Chad Hill, I went and I searched for, basement renovation, and it was sort of a combination of I saw a client, I saw a website I was familiar with because it was someone who I knew someone else, a friend of mine, used them, but the two of those together, came into play. So again, that's kind of why it's important to be able to track this, and as Adam said, be able to see that there may be multiple points that led, or multiple sources that led to the call.
Yeah, that's well put, Chad. And there's just power in measurement. Even if that team was good at tallying these up and putting them in Excel, isn't it worth $10 a month to not have to do that and have the screen capture it and just have it all in one place and remind you? I mean, I know we're in love with our baby here because we built this software, but keeping track of this is a value unto itself. And so we think it's a really big selling point, like Chad said, to be able to sit down, particularly with the real-time demo capabilities, make the call, hear the whisper, see the call show up in the dashboard, watch the bars appear, and it's a real selling point. But Chad, I have one other question that popped in. It's sort of a repeat of the earlier one. To clarify your earlier point, if we have our receptionist record an intro like, "Thanks for calling our company, we are connecting you to a representative," are you saying that audio file could be imported and used instead of the canned "hello and thanks for calling" intro you demonstrated? Sounds like we might have a feature request here shortly, Chad.
Yeah, that's a feature request. We don't do it today. Of course, like anything, is probably not impossible to do, but I think that's something that I would follow up with your account manager on and get that into our. I mean, we'll grab that, but with the specific example, we'll take that one and see what we can do with it.
Yeah, we've had two people bring it up here, so it is not actually that hard because we're reading a current WAV file. So if that's the barrier for you using this, let us know, and we'll get it on our short list because we want people using this.
Great. So that's all I have for today. And Adam, are there any other questions, or does that wrap it up?
No, that wraps it up.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for attending our first webinar of the year. I think everyone will be excited to know we have one coming up here in 2 weeks. We're going to get back to our twice-a-month schedule with the new year, and you should be getting an announcement of that shortly. And have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Thanks, everybody. Good talking to you. See ya.